Upgrading the traditional change of guards in the presidential villa to serve as the Independence Day parade was first taken during the Jonathan administration, mainly due to the security situation in those times. It is a tradition this present administration has chosen to uphold. The ceremony starts with the reception by salute of top leaders, while the national parade itself kicks off when the special guest, President Muhammadu Buhari, receives his national salute. Among dignitaries who graced the occasion is former Vice President Namadi Sambo, who believes Nigerians will unite to overcome any challenges they may face.
Today we are celebrating Nigeria at 56, and we will continue to persevere and to put all our hands together to ensure that we succeed in Nigeria. Nigeria is a great country, it's a promising country.
Prayers are said for the nation, after which dignitaries are treated to an amazing march display by the old guard being changed. It is up to the Commander Brigade of Guards to effect the change of guards to round up the national parade. President Buhari then brings this ceremony to a close by signing the anniversary register, releasing pigeons and cutting the 56th anniversary cake. Dignitaries believe there is much to be thankful for and much to look forward to.
The 6th independence anniversary. I want to congratulate His Excellency the President Muhammadu Buhari and of course all Nigerians for seeing this day. Of course there have been challenges. Those challenges we can turn them into opportunities like we have been doing. Nigeria has the resilience to keep ourselves together, promote that unity and prosperity. I want to say that we have every opportunity, we have all the potentials to make this country great.
They are very optimistic that the future is bright, and as a collective, Nigeria will rise from past mistakes and achieve greatness in the days ahead. Tai Amudu, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, that gives you a background to how the independence was celebrated or commemorated in the State House. Joining us in the studio now, we have Senator Anthony Adefuye, former Senator of the Federal Republic, but once a senator is always a senator. It's good to have you join us, and happy independence.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you. And we have from our Abuja studio a political analyst, Ezenwa Nwagu. Ezenwa, good morning and happy independence.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right. Now, let's start this way, Senator. You are one person who has been in the polity for a long period of time, so you're very conversant with how we have grown until now. If we have to, let's even put the circumstance of recession aside. Put it aside. Let us assume there's no recession. As a people, as a nation, as a country, do we have things to...
Yeah.
All right, that gives you a background to how the independence was celebrated or commemorated in the State House. Joining us in the studio now, we have Senator Anthony Adefuye, former Senator of the Federal Republic, but once a senator is always a senator. It's good to have you join us, and happy independence.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you. And we have from our Abuja studio a political analyst, Ezenwa Nwagu. Ezenwa, good morning and happy independence.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right. Now, let's start this way, Senator. You are one person who has been in the polity for a long period of time, so you're very conversant with how we have grown until now. If we have to, let's even put the circumstance of recession aside. Put it aside. Let us assume there's no recession. As a people, as a nation, as a country, do we have things to celebrate as a people at this independence?
Of course, we have a lot to celebrate.
Okay.
Let me say to you, we really achieved a lot in Nigeria today. We built a new capital. We built 36 new state capitals. And each of these state capitals has about at least 5 towns that were also developed in 56 years. We have done very well. What we have not done is to ensure that this corruption is killed totally. When you talk of recession, anywhere you are fighting corruption, there will be recession because it means you are mopping excess cash in the system. And once you are mopping excess cash in the system, of course there will be recession. Now, if you want to fight recession, you must find the cause of recession. One, we are having quite a lot of people who have stolen Nigeria money, and we are still celebrating them. Two, we are breaking up our oil pipelines, breaking our gas line, and so on and so forth, and we are crying recession. No matter whatever economic theory you have, you cannot solve it, except to look at the root of the problem. If today the Avengers can stop blowing the pipeline, we are going to have 60% of electricity that we require. Now we are having about 30 or 40%, and we are all crying recession, recession. Will God come and give us money? If you borrow 200 million from the bank, and you go and build a house in your village that cannot give you any returns, of course, at the end of the day, the bank will take the house from you because you will not be able to repay the money. But if you take the 200 million and build a house in Lagos or in Abuja, even if you don't live in the house, even if you just take a room for yourself, you will be able to pay the bank loan and you will be able to pay for yourself. But here is Nigeria, where you have the National Assembly that is supposed to monitor and ensure there is no corruption. In this National Assembly, we have at least 21 governors.
Former governors?
Former governors who are there, sitting down there. And where did the corruption come from? It came from the former governors. When you give them money to go and help their states, of course, only about 20% or 25%.
Yeah, if we follow the former appropriation committee chairman, the allegations, some of those people named are not former governors. They are not.
Look, you are talking of a small problem, of the problem that has happened, padding, that is supposed to happen that has not happened. I'm talking of what has happened. Okay. I'm talking of what has happened. So if let's take, for example, you have a police committee, and then you picked the armed robbers around and make them members of the police committee, thinking that because they're armed robbers, maybe they will stop stealing. You are deceiving yourself, because they now have total cover. And they will steal, and nobody will report the stealing, so you think the stealing does not exist anymore.
All right,
Senator.
Let's bring Mr. Nwagwu into this discussion now. Senator here talked about reasons to celebrate, and one of the reasons has to do with 36 states capitals and perhaps some towns developed in those states. And the issue of restructuring comes to mind now, where some people have argued that some of those states are no longer viable, where they can no longer pay salaries. Your take on that? 56 years of Nigeria's independence, the issue of restructuring, viability of some states or not. Mr. Nwagwu, please.
Well, I think that the argument for creation of states had always been that the states are viable and that they can be self-sustaining. Even as recent as 2014 National Conference, you had people coming to the National Conference to agitate for more states to be created. And part of the argument is that they have what it takes to go on their own. So it is a lame argument to continue to say that the states are not viable. What is probably true is what the senator there talked about, which is that whereas we have been able to, we can rejoice that we shook off foreign colonial dominance. We have not been able to, in the last 56 years, shake off the dominance of predators, economic predators, that we have saddled with the responsibility of taking care of our affairs. And instead of taking care of our affairs, they have rather taken care of themselves. And so it's put us in a situation where we all come cap in, with like the Almajiri coming with plates to the federal to take what we can take. And instead of even using what we take to develop our places, we use them to feather our own nest and then build a non-existent empire, even for generations that we don't know whether they will come or not. So really, for me, it's not about viability or not. The truth is that going across Nigeria, you will find that if we can look inwards, if we can introspect a little more, we will find the things that can keep us going. Whether even the agriculture you talked about, your last guest was talking about how people abandoned agriculture. It's not completely true. Those who were buying the agricultural products changed their attention from agri products to oil. And once you couldn't, your granules, your cocoa, if you don't find a market for them, you'll have to eventually find out that you can't continue in that way. So the resource costing that oil brought is something that we need to deal with. We need to begin to see how we can reindustrialize, so that when we produce, we are not just thinking about where to take them to, we are also able to add value to the things that we produce and make people happy.
All right, Ezenwa, let me stay with you on this. Let's go back to the days of independence, because we know that for a prosperous economy, at least from the history of this country, political parties based on their ideologies have been able to drive a certain kind of economy that has led to prosperity. We know the days of the Action Group, the NPC and the NCNC, they had ideologies. All those political parties had ideologies, and even until the 1979 to 1983, that republic where the UPNs and the NPNs and all of that. If we have to liken the political parties that time and now based on ideologies, what do you think their differences or similarities are?
Well, as you know, for you to be a member of any of those political parties you talked about, you were in fact first recruited into the ideological schools. You had to go through their school, whether it's Action Group or NCNC. You first will have to be a true member. You will have to pay your dues and all of that. But as we speak today, there are no political parties in a technical sense, because the same person that you find in APC this morning, just annoy him a little, in the evening he's already a member of PDP. And if you ask any of the political parties to give you their register, you would be amazed that it's been difficult. As someone who's been engaged in electoral processes and also engaged in training party agents and the rest of them, you find out that you ask them for even people who will be trained by these political parties, they are unable to give you a list of those to be trained. And when eventually the people come, you find out that it is at the very training center, they are calling people to say, which political party do you want me to represent in this training? And that's the challenge. You can find out that even in 2015 elections, there were people who were party agents for Party A in the governorship election, and at the presidential election, they were agents for another political party. So that brings to fore the fact that you truly, in technical sense, our party system is so fluid that you cannot hold them. But in terms of whether they have ideology, they have ideology. The ideology is unfortunately not what you will define as ideology, but in the main is to put their hands on the commonwealth and appropriate it. And so it's in itself an ideology. So, but the UPN, the Action Group, the NPN, you could hold them down on education, you could hold them down on housing, you could hold them down on agriculture. But today, as we speak, if you read the manifestos of the different political parties, you will find in concrete terms nothing different other than how to use those platforms as a vote-catching machine, get into government, and then run off from there.
All right. Okay.
We still have to, because the point, when it comes to ideology, this is the foundation to which any society functions, because every government is owned by a political party. Senator, I'm going to ask you this. When it comes to ideology, even those who are members of the political party today, not so many of them get to understand or get to have a grasp of what, because the reason why I'm saying this is because I've asked about 3 or 4 members of a political party what their ideology is, and they say different things.
Now, let me say clearly. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
The UPN, during that time, they have 4 cardinal programs. And if you don't believe in the 4 cardinal program, you are not a member. And what is the 4 cardinal program? Housing for all, food for all, shelter, and free education. That is the ideology. Now, today's party, the ideology will be a book. Do you understand? Now, when they get there, as he has said, now the ideology is how to corner the national cake. Let me say to you, the problem we have now is because only about 10 people own Nigeria. And if they disagree with you, you are in trouble. Look at the banks. All of them are owned by individuals. Should that happen, the bank should be everybody's money. So if those 10 people decide that the Naira is going to be 500 to $1, it will be, because it's owned by one man. If you look at the last time when the last government was trying to pick the problems in the banks, and we found out at the end of the day, it was a struggle for one to take one's bank and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, there was no solution to it. Nobody wants to release it. So the government must make sure that they nationalize all these properties. I was afraid, I was amused when people were saying that government will sell some properties and so on and so forth. They have already sold them. If you sell your banks to individuals, you have sold them. You have sold the country. Now, maybe we have about 10 banks owned by 10 people. We have the communication owned by 10 people. We have the oil wells owned by 10 people, and so on and so forth. So what are you talking about? What economy are you talking about? The last person sat down here and was saying all sorts of economic theory. That is if things were in order. If things were in order. Here is a place where one person is earning 36 million a month and one person is earning 18,000 naira a month. Most of my staff, even though there's nobody earning 18,000 naira a month, they still cannot go home. They work and sleep on site and then go home on Friday and come back on Monday. No, if you say you are in the National Assembly, if you say you are in government, and that is happening and you cannot do anything, so which political
But is that not what translates into the political arena where a party has an ideology, but you bring in somebody perhaps who has the money to float the election to come and run on the platform of that party, and the person gets to power,
he has told you,
dissociates himself from the ideologies of the party.
When there is a party, once that party wins, you now find all sorts of funny people being made ministers who are not even members of the party. You find all sorts of funny people being made commissioners who are not members of the party. So how can the party execute his ideology? When the people you now bring in to run the party, you call them aristocrats or whatever you call them. Technocrats are not members of the. Are they technocrats or really aristocrats?
We'll come back to that
yes.
one. All right, Nigeria got her independence from Britain in October 1960, and 3 years later became a republic in 1963.
Shortly after these events, Nigeria fell prey to a civil war and the first of many military coups in 1966. Democracy was briefly restored from 1979 to 1983, the famous of Nigeria's early independent history. She was ruled by a series of military leaders. The last major military ruler, General Sani Abacha, died suddenly in 1998.
Now, his successor, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, promised a transition to civil rule. Now, democracy was ushered back.
The execute his ideology. When the people you now bring in to run the party, you call them aristocrats or whatever you call them.
Technocrats.
Are not members of the. Are they technocrats or really aristocrats?
that's
Senator,
we'll come back to that.
We'll come back to that one. All right, Nigeria got her independence from Britain in October 1960, and 3 years later became a republic in 1963.
Shortly after these events, Nigeria fell prey to a civil war and the first of many military coups in 1966. Democracy was briefly restored from 1979 to 1983, with a most of Nigeria's early independent history. She was ruled by a series of military leaders. The last major military ruler, General Sani Abacha, died suddenly in 1998.
Now, his successor, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, promised a transition to civil rule. Now, democracy was ushered back on May 29, 1999 by General Abdulsalami Abubakar, a man who would go down forever in history as the father of the Fourth Republic, as he did not only willingly transfer power to a democratically elected president, Olusegun Obasanjo, but also provided a constitution which continues to serve as a guide and the embodiment of the virtues and system of governance in Nigeria. Now let's take you down memory lane with this clip of the 1999 handover ceremony.
I, Olusegun Obasanjo,
do solemnly swear
that
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. So
Remember that morning, the whole world was watching Nigeria because there were several things. After military years of rulership, handing over to a civilian government, and besides that, the person of President Olusegun Obasanjo, remember, he was in prison.
Indeed. So since 1999, a different democratically elected governments have governed Nigeria. Let's dig into a bit of history. In February 1999, elections were held and retired General Olusegun Obasanjo, who had previously governed Nigeria as a military ruler, was elected the new president. Olusegun Obasanjo established the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, to fight corruption in Nigeria.
Now, also, the Global System for Mobile Communications, the GSM, was introduced to the Nigerian market in 2001 by the Obasanjo administration. Those were really phenomenal at the time. Now, late Umar Musa Yar'Adua was declared the winner of the Nigerian presidential election held in April 2007 and was sworn in on May 29th of same year. In August 2007, the late president came up with the policy tagged the 7-point agenda as the main thrust of his stewardship.
Yar'Adua initiated the Niger Delta Amnesty Program, which saw hundreds of youth, particularly those that took arms against the state, going abroad for studies and professional training. Goodluck Jonathan, who was Yar'Adua's deputy, May the 4th, 2010. Some of this notable achievement, of course, construction of the new Abuja Kaduna Rail. They're talking about former President Jonathan's achievement. He revamped the agricultural sector, established 12 federal universities. He built 150 Al-Majri schools, which some state governments said they cannot fund it because it's too expensive now. On May the 29th, 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari was sworn into office as Nigeria's president, and a few months ago, his administration clocked 1 year in office. Yeah, some of his achievements so far.
All right, anti-corruption war. The Nigerian military have regained all Nigerian territories previously under Boko Haram control, and the implementation of the Treasury single account you call the TSA.
Which also came from the former administration, actually. That was the brainchild of Jonathan's administration, but implemented by...
Yeah, all right. Now, let me come to Ezenwa in here. We have seen from May 29th, 1999 until now, a lot of people have referred to the Nigerian democracy as nascent democracy. You know, we have celebrated the transition from one civilian rule to the other without any hitch and all of that. But if we have to come to the nitty-gritty of these issues, how would you assess our political development so far when it comes to the electoral system, when it comes to the tenets and the ingredients of democracy from that time, May 29th, until now?
Thanks. I think perhaps the big challenge for us is that we have had much more longer transition from civil rule to democracy. And the implication of that is that because of our long association with dictatorship, we have had many people who run our democracy, but they are not intrinsically Democrats. Like I said, our political party system cannot, in technical sense, be called a party system because it's still run from the pockets of godfathers and not in the way you understand godfathers, but people who control the resources of the country. I can give you a basic example. Immediately after somebody in Ondo State left the Labour Party, that party has not been able to field a candidate in Ondo State. As soon as somebody in Sokoto State left DPP, Democratic People's Party, DPP is dead, technically speaking. So you find out that it is the resources of the country that individuals corner that they used to run the states. Even the dominant political parties that you find today are actually run by states through state resources. So basically, the democracy is about participation. And the extent to which the people participate defines whether you can truly beat your chest and say you have a democracy. And then knocking it deeper, you also have even legislative and constitutional restrictions to participation. You can take the votes of somebody who is 18 years, but you use the law to put constitutional bottlenecks and obstacles against aspiration. That if somebody is 29 years, that person cannot aspire to be voted into the House of Representatives of his country. That if somebody is 35 years, he cannot aspire to be president of his country. And look at the demography that you alienate from making a career in politics through legislation. And then you can beat your chest and say you're a democracy. In many other countries, in Scandinavian countries, they are reducing the age of voting from even 18 to 15, 14. So we will need to continue to expand this space. This is a country in which you have INEC registering political parties, determining whether political parties will exist. And in other places that are democratic, even when they have multi-party system, they still encourage independent candidacy. Right where you are, you can just Google, how many political parties does America have? America has close to 400 political parties, but just about 14 come on the ballot. And here, you have INEC registering political parties, and educated people continue to support that and have that mentality that because one Babangida legislated into existence SDP and NRC, that you will not allow political parties to evolve on their own, even if they don't naturally have to be on the ballot.
All right.
So in this journey to democracy, we must define in clear terms how much we want to expand the political space. Ghana is their multi-party democracy, but it still has independent candidates.
Okay, let's bring
it's a thinking. We are coming from a barrack mentality to a civilian barrack mentality that we need to shake off.
Okay.
All right. Maybe, Senator, is the issue with the constitution of the Nigeria as drawn up by perhaps people who might have shared the toga of military but still has some blood of military dictatorship ruling and running in them, who sat down and formulated the Constitution of Nigeria in 1979, 1999. Is that responsible for what Ezenwa is talking about?
In 2014, there was a national conference, and we all sat down and looked at this and reviewed the whole thing. Let them go back to that and pick up the conclusions of those and recommendations of those conferences. The TSA was one of the things we recommended during the conference. At the conference, he was saying that we were agitating for more states. No, nobody agitated for more states. What happened was that we initially wanted to create 2 more states in the south and 2 more states in the north. And the east said they only have 5 states, and that the northwest has 7. And they were now trying to make sure that every region has equal number of states. And that was where this came up. Some leaders now went somewhere and agreed that, okay, let's create 3 more states, and then only 1 state in the northwest, create 5 states in the northeast, so that every region can be the same. Of course, when you say you want to create more states, ordinary people who were in the conference, we just say yes, but we knew it is impossible to create those states when the states as we have now could not even afford to pay salaries.
And those are recommendations of the Constitutional Conference, but the present administration perhaps is not leaning towards implementing those recommendations. So what do we suggest?
I think he has just formed a 50-man commission to review this constitution. And Nina Mani was one of those who was at that conference. I'm sure they will look at the 2014 recommendation. I think it was a good recommendation, and they should actually look at it. And if they look at it, I'm sure it will make the people to live together in a peaceful atmosphere. There were a lot of good recommendations there that I know. But of course, if we don't stop corruption, the same thing will continue. Right. And how do you stop corruption? It's not just by choosing 1 person or 2 people all over the place. Nationalize all the banks. Even this your television station. There are too many and they are owned by individuals. They should be nationalized. So that when you open a television station...
But you know the issue of privatization of...
privatization does not mean...
Privatization of particular sector.
Yeah, they don't mean individualization. Privatization does not mean individualization.
It should be a joint venture.
It should be a joint. It's not done anywhere in the world. You cannot own something alone. There must be. It must be on the. You must allow people to buy shares. You must allow people, and there must be restriction to the amount of shares you can have, so that people can have a say in what is going on. What we have done now is individualizing Nigerian state, and not privatization. As I told you, go to the oil blocks owned by 10 people. Right. Go to the television station owned by 10 people. Go to the airlines owned by 10 people. Okay. So as much as you want to fight corruption, and these institutions as they are, you will never fight corruption. And the poor people will only suffer for it. Now we are talking of go back to farming and so on and so forth. If they go back to farming, and the man who is going to import all the lorries that will bring the food increase the price by 200%, a lorry that should come in at X price is coming at 3X price. Of course, we have increased the price of the produce coming from the farms.
So the agitations of the Niger Delta Avenger, to an extent, are you saying is genuine? Because that's one of their demands, that the oil blocks were owned by some few people.
Look, that does not mean you should go and be blowing the pipes. That does not mean you should be sabotaging whatever is going on. Well, I am not sabotaging anything. What I'm saying is this thing should be looked into. You should speak with a voice that people will know that you want a reconstruction and not a destruction. Okay. You don't go and be destroying pipelines. You don't go and be killing people. You don't go and be terrorizing people. That is no more agitation for good government. If that is so, then anybody can take arms and face the government and take over the the government.
Okay.
If we had let Boko Haram alone, they would have probably taken over the Borno state government, and so on and so forth. So that is not the way to fight for something. You go on, the government must formulate a situation where you and I will have shares in what is going on, and will have interest in what is going on, and will have a voice in what is going on. That voice is not there.
All right, Senator, let's come to the issue of the system of government. We have tested different styles. We've done the parliamentary system early when we had independence. And after that, even the military form of government was a government that we have experienced and seen that, well, it's not universally accepted. And then we came to the presidential system of government. Now, we have heard also complaints from people that the presidential system is too expensive to run. What form of government or what system of government do you think is best for the plurality of the kind of Nigeria
and
we have?
Peculiarity of Nigeria.
In the 2014 conference, we recommended by Borno state government, and so on and so forth. So that is not the way to fight for something. Go on, the government must formulate a situation where you and I will have shares in what is going on, and will have interest in what is going on, and will have a voice in what is going on. That voice is not there.
All right, Senator, let's come to the issue of the system of government. We have tested different styles. We've done the parliamentary system early when we had independence. And after that, even the military form of government was a government that we have experienced and seen that, well, it's not universally accepted. And then we came to the presidential system of government. Now, we have heard also complaints from people that the presidential system is too expensive to run. What form of government or what system of government do you think is best for the plurality of the kind of Nigeria we have?
Peculiarity of Nigeria.
In the 2014 conference, we recommended bicameral legislation, which means even the president himself will be a member of the House. So they could actually discuss, and it will be one house in any way. They could actually discuss and agree and then go and execute. And that is what we think is the best for Nigeria, and that was what we recommended. Now, what we have now, the other man was saying political parties. If you don't allow two major political parties to rule, as we have during the SDP, NRC, what you will have is multi-parties that are looking for the interests of their state or their region. That is what is against just having the parties. And if we come to the same thing, individuals will now own political parties. As we have it now, is
that not the case right now?
No.
Not some individuals have a say more than others in some political parties.
Well, there are some must have a say more. There is leadership. There is, in any political party, there must be a leader. He will have the voice, but of course, the followership will dictate what he has to do. But if you have a party and it's just owned by one or two people, they can feed anybody, and if that person wins by mistake, the whole country becomes theirs. Now, if we have two political parties, and you know that can be either belong to A or B, as we have during the SDP, NRC, which was still the best transition we ever had in Nigeria, the best as you can, then you will go and contest based on free primaries. Now, the greatest problem we have is that we have selective primaries. It will be my son, it will be my relative, it will be this, and so on and so forth. And you pack them into the House of Assembly, and then you become governor. How can you solve the problem?
Okay. Let's talk about the issue of power sharing. Either we like it or not, is here, and some minority groups feel a little bit left out. 56 years of Nigeria history. Some group feel they are not well represented. What's your take on that? Marginalized. What's your take on that? Power sharing or power rotation, as some parties would like to call it?
I think that I worry more for the kind of conversation that we're having, the conversation about the continued restriction of the political space because somebody will personalize the process. Why do people personalize the process? What we have now is personalized. It's completely personalized. So the issue of power sharing, power rotation is first. The problem is that we don't even know what kind of system that we run. We don't know whether we are running a presidential system. We don't know whether we are running a parliamentary system. If you take the issue of budget padding, for instance, you will see that it is impossible for the members of the legislature to pad the budget without executive collusion. So in real sense, the whole idea of checks and balances, separation of powers, exists in theory. In practice, you find out that the elite of our country, whether they are in the executive or in the legislature, are programmed in one direction, and that direction is clear to anybody who is discerning. So my worry is not these slogans, the mantranization of governance, power sharing, power allocation. People are, that man that you are talking about, within his own small confines, he is dominating somebody also in that place. If you resolve the problem by rotation, which is what we have done by zoning, okay? Most times, as nice as it is, but you find out that it has not given us even the best from those zones. So the thing is to sit down and rethink whatever process it is that we're dealing with. Are we going to do it well? Are we going to do it the way other people do it? If that happens, if we determine in our own small places that we're not going to dominate people, in my state, for instance, or let's just use Kogi. If it's not by natural occurrence that we saw in Kogi State, it will have been difficult for the minority, anybody in minority, to be governor of Kogi State if you are not from the majority part, if we continue to do what we call democracy. So you say, okay, let's zone. People agree to zoning, but they have refused to constitutionalize it, because when they take power, they want to dominate, they want to hold it to themselves. They don't want to give it out. So my sense is that it is not a problem of the textbook understanding of what political sharing is, what it's our own attitude to these issues. How have we civilianized our conduct? How have we internalized the process of democracy, expanding the space to allow participation, whether it's in the political, even the media helps to exacerbate that crisis. If for instance somebody wants to run election now, the first thing the media talks about is whether that person has the war chest. Does he have the war chest? Does he have the financial muscle? He's a very honest man, we know him, but does he have the resources to run that election? We are the ones who talk about strong man of somewhere's politics, strong man of Ibadan politics, strong man of Kwara politics. We, by default, also help in personalizing these processes. So it's to sit down and exchange the narrative. Senator Adefuye talked about the National Conference. I was also a member of the National Conference. I continue to say that the challenge that we have is not in the number of conferences that we have had. It is more in our determination to do the right thing. Look at policing, for instance. Which country, which multi-ethnic, big country in the world runs a single police system? We continue to talk about state policing. Break this thing down. Don't control this process. People have held on to the fact that you just have to have one IG who sits down in Abuja and oversees what is happening in Mbise in my state. I am thinking that the elite of our country have conspired consistently to hold down the people, and the only way to do that is to break this system in such a way that it becomes democratic and participatory and inclusive.
Ezenwa Nwagwu, thank you for talking to us on TVC Breakfast. All right, I think at this time, let's bring in Foladele in here to give us a perspective on social media, how Nigerians are reacting. Happy Independence. And I like your hairband.
Thank you. I got the memo, Salami. I got the memo.
That's great. That's great.
All right, really quickly, because of time, I'll just quickly take you through some of the tweets, speaking of political development and how Nigerians are reacting to this. First one from @Dontonte, he's saying, political intolerance, religious violence, regional issues, Boko Haram, NDA, Biafra, IDP, corruption, all this in #Nigeria at 56.
Wow.
Next one from @Imo Umoran, who's saying, when I was a kid, they promised us light, good roads and water. Now I got a kid, they promised us light, good road and water, #Nigeria at 56. @Amazing Ayo says, independence, that's middle class blasphemy. We're all dependent on one another, every soul of us on earth. at Eniola Okwayemi says, hashtag Nigeria at 56. But most leaders, both past and serving, are older than the country itself. When will the future come for the youths to serve? And I remember Izenwa raised a point about that. Indeed. And the last one here from at Adedeji Oyin says, hashtag Nigeria at 56. And we're not even sitting yet. Talk more of crawling. We'll get there someday. I pray I'm alive to witness it. Really quickly, Senator.
It's a good prayer.
Yes, it is. That's the prayer everyone's praying. Now, we've talked so much about the negative aspect and, you know, the things that are still a cause for concern, speaking of our political development. But looking at Nigeria over the last 56 years, do you think that there's anything to be proud of at all when we look at our political development? Anything at all?
No, honestly, we have done very well. I started with that. We have done very well. It's just that it's corruption and the way we have achieved it. What should be owned by all of us is owned by one person. What should be owned by a town is owned by one person. That's the only problem that we have. Once we try to nationalize all these things to ensure that, look, most of you bought shares 10 years ago, thinking that you were investing for the future. Where are those shares now? We didn't know they were owned by single people. The banks crashed, everything crashed, and the shares disappeared. How will I, getting old, how will I look at myself?
Yeah, talking about
because most
ownership.
of the shares that you bought for yourself, they have disappeared. You bought them for 6 naira, they are now not worth 1 naira because somebody has stolen those values from us.
All right.
It is not that we have not done very well.
Yes.
It is just that we must put a system in place so that if you have a penny, it remains a penny or improves in price as you get older. Okay. You know, but in Nigeria today, it's only sand, cement and mortar.
So the bad we've done has overshadowed the good we've done.
Well, Fola, thank you very much. You have asked the last question on the program this morning, but thank you. All right, Senator, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And we wish you well. I wish Nigeria well as well. We also thank Ezenwa Nwagu for joining us from Abuja. This is where we come to the end of today's edition of TVC Breakfast. We talked about Nigeria from different perspectives, but number one, however way it is, Nigeria will better, you know, and all of that. And let's remain patriotic. That's